Idami sisikonixikoix. Kisisimatsumokbua. Anastuanikokatsastomaka nanamokdokdu sixikesitabiwa. Anitsito Hello, my name is Curtis Running Rabbit Left Hand. My Indian name is Running Rabbit. And I come from the Siksika Nation of Skapibikani Nation, all part of here in the Blackfoot Confederacy. I'm also a founder and board member of the Indigenous Resilience and Music Society of Alberta, and a festival manager of the Wild Rose Hardcore Festival, all based here in Mohkinstsis, Calgary, otherwise known as the Elbow River. I'd like to thank you for joining us for Music Calgary SoundOff Summit Digital Strategies. In doing so, I'd also like to welcome you to the Blackfoot Confederacy, which is the ancestral lands of the Piikani, Siksika, and Kainai First Nations. It also includes the Tsuut'ina and Stoney Nakoda First Nations, which include the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. And we also like to acknowledge the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. And thank you for joining us today and for being part of this discussion and tuning in to everything that's going on for Music Calgary. If you'd like to be part of future events and keep up to date with programming, you can become a member of Music Calgary on their website. And we'd like to welcome you here today to the Artist to Platform panel discussion. And if you'd like to look at more content from the summit, you can look at the last 5 weeks on their YouTube at Music Calgary Online. Sukapi, Yan.
Hi everyone, my name is Sean Burchill. I go under the DJ name Burchill. I'm from Calgary, Alberta. I'm currently in Victoria, British Columbia. I was a resident DJ at the Hi-Fi Club in Calgary and play lots of festivals on the West Coast here. We have two guests here with us today. Josephine, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, hello. My name is Josephine Cruz, otherwise known as Jayem Kayem. I am originally from Calgary also, but I have lived in Toronto now for almost 6 years. It'll be 6 years in a couple weeks, so that's pretty crazy. What have I been up to here? I mean, over the last year, I've been just trying to survive. But other than that, I've been working on like various music related things since coming out here. I've pretty much done like every job you can think of in the music industry, from like working in the media side to the PR side to obviously performing myself as a DJ, throwing events, creating content, doing brand partnerships. Yeah, the whole gamut. So I'm just a miscellaneous music person. That's me.
And Pat.
Cool. Yeah, I go by Pat Lok. I'm originally from Vancouver, British Columbia, and I've been out in LA where I'm based now. I guess we're at somewhere between 4 or 5 years. Time comes to a standstill when you're here. And I've released multiple records on a French label named Kitsune, and people might be familiar with some of my remix work for acts like Galantis, Duke Dumont, Han, S.G. Lewis, and done some touring. Been touring for probably as an artist for maybe coming up on, I don't know, once the pandemic started and once again time stood still, but probably greater part of a decade now, and held residencies in places like Seoul and in Chicago. So over the past year, I've been kind of just writing a lot and learning about what is the future of music and the industry. And like Josephine, but less so, dipped my toe in the streaming world. And yeah, it's been a really interesting time. So I think that today should be an interesting conversation.
Awesome, thank you. So I think it would be good to go maybe back to the start for each of you, and sort of what digital platforms did you first use when you got started in this crazy industry?
I can go first.
Sure. Thanks.
I mean, I'm like a total kid of the internet, you know, like I think I'm kind of like, I think I'm part of the last generation who probably had a little bit of my like youth where there wasn't like social media and widespread internet usage, but kind of like came into it like right when I was a teenager, when blogs and stuff were really like blowing up. So, and I was always like just obsessed with the idea of being able to like see into other people's lives and see what was going on in other places, like that. I still to this day I think that's so cool, and I really use, you know, the internet and social media as like a source of like inspiration and learning. So yeah, I was like heavy in the like blogging like world, like on like Blogspot and like Tumblr. And I was always into music, but before I ever started sort of playing around with it myself as a DJ and trying to make music, I more worked on like the media side. So this is like when I was back in Calgary, writing for like local music publications, and then obviously SoundCloud, like in 2013-14 was like pretty much the biggest thing for music discovery, and that's like really what I started when I first started making mixes and stuff, like putting it on SoundCloud. And in that era, and I'm sure Pat can speak to this a lot, like the organic reach you could get on something like SoundCloud was like ridiculous, you know, like you could post like a song or even a mix, and overnight you could get like thousands and thousands of plays. And so that's kind of like really, yeah, where I got started. It's different now, obviously, but I think we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, that was the early, the genesis of it for me was definitely like Tumblr, Blogspot, SoundCloud kind of vibes.
Yeah, it was sort of similar to me. I started DJing when I was in college, and around the time I found out about, the sort of blog house period, which is I think a similar time, about 2008, 2009, around the, Chromeo was starting to finally like break out internationally, and Justice, Cross, and all that exciting stuff, cut copy presets. I started messing around with mashups. And just, I'd always kind of tinkered with like FL or Reason or different things, and I got Ableton and started messing around in there and got a little bit better, and started doing these bootlegs, and it was all about SoundCloud for sure, and SoundCloud and Hype Machine as well, where you could, if you got onto the front page of Hype Machine or something, you could all of a sudden, see six figures on plays on your tracks, like basically overnight, and sometimes into seven figures, and you'd see like sort of touring careers and artists' careers being born almost overnight. And that was really interesting. I mean, there was MySpace before that, but I think that was definitely, maybe the genesis of it all. So yeah, it's been a really interesting period. I mean, I think those times are already, I guess they're almost 10 years old now, and we're into a new era. But what a great time it was, though.
Yeah, SoundCloud, it feels like it's been around like since the start for most people. That was like like you said, Jayem, like the music discovery platform. But just with every other sort of application or platform coming out, how have you seen SoundCloud maybe change? Do you still use it as much to be, finding new music, or, do you put as much stock in it as you used to? How do you feel about that, Pat?
So I'm probably, I would say that I think I use SoundCloud more than some of my peers these days, because I still like to dig. I like to dig on YouTube, and I don't necessarily trust the main DSPs for music discovery as much as, they might want me to. So I do mess around and go in there and people's likes and like find like kids with like, 50 plays or whatever. But it was definitely that was, a true breeding ground before. And I think a lot of those scenes and producers are starting to shift to your Bandcamps, and Audius is another, a new sort of hotbed for that. And, not to jump the gun, but we can get into all that later on.
For sure.
Yeah, I think that like SoundCloud had this huge explosion, and it was kind of this big deal as Pat mentioned, and then it kind of like died off. Like, the limitations of it became like very apparent over the years, like how people weren't really getting compensated for their work that was on there. Like, yeah, they were getting millions of plays, but like, what does that really mean? And like Pat said, yes, there has definitely been some artists whose careers have been like made on SoundCloud and who've been able to like, evolve that into like something bigger, but that's like the very rare case. So with all that being said, like it was kind of like this, crazy rise and then like this big fall, but there is still definitely like a place for it, and I really like to sort of analyze my own usage of platforms as like, especially from the DJ perspective, when I'm like hunting for music, like is there still value in this platform for that? And like there definitely is. I still find music on SoundCloud, and I still discover artists on SoundCloud like all the time. So I think that there's like, it's definitely got its place. And another thing for like as artists to remember is like you kind of have to like be everywhere that you can a little bit. Like we have so many, you know, and it's funny because 5 years ago I probably would have not given the same advice. Like I probably would have said pick your like few platforms that you can really like go hard on and just concentrate on those. But now it's kind of like there's so much happening all the time. There's so many hundreds of hours of content being published every day. It's like you kind of have to apply pressure wherever you can. So if just like uploading your stuff to SoundCloud is like one part of that thing, even the chance that it might like go somewhere is kind of worth it in a way. And like, you know, there also is the simple fact that like SoundCloud is like monetized now. So like you can like earn revenue and stuff from streams if you happen to have a song that like goes really crazy on there. So yeah, I think that it still absolutely has a place. I don't think it's the same kind of thing it was maybe like, you know, 5, 7, 10 years ago. But it's still got its place. It's still a great place to sort of like house music for discovery by other people. And then the integrations that are there for, you know, linking off to like Bandcamp and stuff like that are pretty like much a no-brainer. Yeah. And like the crazy fan gating, if that's your thing. Like, it's so painful sometimes.
That hastened its downfall. That was, I mean, we're not going to sit here and pick apart why, but that hasn't helped, I don't think.
No, I mean, I don't mind giving someone my email address, but
right.
if I have to give someone my email address and then I have to like be prompted to like like them on Instagram and like them on YouTube and add a comment and like do all these things, it gets a little bit like crazy. I just have a burner account now though, so we Gucci.
Right. Game system.
A burner account just for downloads. Hot tip right there, guys.
But it's interesting that you say, and like this is already kind of like the big matzo ball in the room, which is kind of like how do you value, you know, a track or remix or something like that. And on the one side, on the artist side, has been a tough thing for artists to gauge in an incredibly rapidly shifting, you know, time, you know, with different platforms and going, well, before you could heart it on Hype Machine and now it doesn't matter, before you could repost and now the reposts don't matter as much. So then, you know, then they're trying to like do this catch-all thing, whereas some people are like, give me $1 or name your price on Bandcamp. And in some cases, if you want me to follow 8 accounts and repost and leave a comment, then I'm like, I would rather give you $1, please. But instead I'll just close this tab and have a coffee. But it's a tough question, I think, right?
Yeah, it's loaded for sure. I mean, it sounds like SoundCloud, it seems like it's developed over the years. Maybe it's a little slow to catch on with a lot of things. But I just know as a pure DJ, like with putting out mixes, that's how I've kind of built the following on there, which has been super helpful because I don't know if there's any other platform that really hosts mixes as well as SoundCloud does. Like I don't know if Mixcloud can really compete. I haven't really played around too much with it, but
don't get me started on Mixcloud. I tear on them. Like it's so funny. Like Mixcloud is, I do respect a lot of things about that platform. Like, you know, they've really got their like licensing and stuff like proper, especially for like the live stream thing that they're trying to push. Like it's the one platform that's like fully properly licensed for DJs to stream on there. Like that's really amazing. But it's like, I don't know who just made some of the decisions on that platform for their monetization, but it's like whoever did a very bad job, because now you have to like pay for certain functionality that should not be like a paid function. Like I shouldn't have to pay so I can rewind a radio show that I'm listening to, you know? That's a thing now. If you want to seek backwards, you have to pay. I'm like, this is crazy. If I'm listening to like a show on like, you know, a Rinse FM radio show and I want to like rewind to hear what the name of the track was that the DJ just played and I can't, it's so counterintuitive. So I agree with you though. SoundCloud is like absolutely still the best option for housing mixes. And I do think that they're also really trying to like, you know, I know a lot of people's other problem with SoundCloud was like the fact that their accounts would get taken down. Like they would get those copyright hits. I don't know if you've ever had that, Pat, but I definitely have had some mixes and stuff taken off mine.
I ran into some takedowns to the point where people started gaming the system and starting like, a second burner account for those bootlegs, which is like what defeats the purpose of building, working so hard to get your X amount of followers, right? And so just as a, we can get into this aspect, because I think that Audius is, I don't know if Sean or Josephine, if you've like messed around with it too much, but it is currently like the closest thing. Like mixtapes are good, bootlegs seem to be good for now, but there's a lot more sort of at stake, so to speak. I mean, one of the founders or one of the core team is the other founder of Ausla with Skrillex, and they're doing it's based on the blockchain, but that doesn't really matter to the creator, like to you and I, so much. Like we can just kind of upload our stuff, and it's interesting. I think I started paying attention when I saw that a lot of independent artists and like forward-thinking artists who I respect were on there early on, like Boys Noise and RAC and Mr. Carmack, and so it's interesting to see them. I am doing a little bit more music discovery on there now, and I think if you're looking for next wave, it's still somewhere in between SoundCloud and Audius, because I think there's certain demographics and geographically speaking, but it is interesting to think about I guess the intersectionality of like crypto and technology and how it relates to music and the things that you can do with that as a creator. So I know I'm sort of beating around the bush here, but I don't want to go all the way in just yet if we've got other things to talk about.
Well, Audius is definitely something that we can chat about. I'm not too familiar with it. So what would you say is, what does Audius have that some of these other platforms don't have? Like, what do you think it's the competitive advantage for Audius?
So I would say that because they're not hosting it. It's not like before, if you uploaded something to SoundCloud, it was on their servers. So Audius is decentralized. It's on the Ethereum blockchain. And so if, let's say you want to support, just support the platform and earn some revenue, essentially it trades like as a crypto coin. You would purchase some audio or Audius and then have those tokens, and once you stake them on the platform, then you're helping to secure the platform. This is beyond my pay grade, but essentially makes you a node operator and part of the network. So from the creator side, it's interesting because what they're heading towards is a model where you can design your own streaming rates. You can design your own royalty. Like, so going back to the DSPs, which is something we kind of glossed over, but let's take Spotify, for example. Of every dollar, they usually keep 88% of that, and they split that amongst themselves and the majors, and the artist share is about 12% to split with a label. Your label, which you may have a 70-30 split on. Your manager is going to take 20 gross, maybe 15, 20. So you have a really, really small, the pie gets smaller and smaller and smaller. In Audius, they're trying to go flip it the other way around and go 90-10, 90% to the artists and 10% to the network, the node operators. And that's, I don't work for Audius, disclaimer. I think it's pretty interesting and I have my own questions. And so I'm like, right off the bat, that seems pretty appealing. The part that I like is where they're headed towards it officially is that you can, if I only want like X amount of people, like you have to hold a certain token to be able to stream, or for example, if I were to launch my own crypto token, I could say that, this will give you access to these new remixes or demos or something of mine. And so I think it's, with the whole digital platform, which I guess, it's a big conversation, where we're headed towards is, I think, different kinds of relationships and engagement with fans. And I think Jayem's done a really great job of that, utilizing something that a lot of artists are doing now, which is Discords, which also links to the crypto world and Audius. But yeah, Jayem, let's before we get too technical, I think like, what have you learned about, your engagement in your base and, with Discord and Twitch?
Yeah, I mean, that was great, like the breakdown you just gave. And I think that, the world of like crypto and like blockchain can be like very, it can be, what is it? Like, what's the word I'm looking for? It can be intimidating.
Complex?
I mean, yeah, complex.
Yes.
There's so much to learn. But I think that like the crux of like the most interesting thing about these platforms and what they're really doing is like flipping the notion of ownership. That's like really what it, at its core, what it's doing, that's super interesting. And allowing people to buy into something, like physically buy into something that they're using. So I would say, at one level, like at one end of the spectrum, there's like that world, like Audius, blockchain, crypto, very complex and complicated. And then like you can kind of move the slider along to something that's even a little bit more digestible and not basic, because it's not basic at all, but like things like Patreon and Twitch subscriptions, and Bandcamp has a subscription service, and all these like Pat mentioned, you can like hook those into like something like a Discord, so you can have certain sections of Discord that are like only accessible by fans who have paid. And so I think that's something that in the last year has just become like, it's something I thought about before. I just don't think I really understood how I could do it, especially as someone who doesn't really create a lot of music. There would be no point for me to like say create a Bandcamp subscription service, because it's like, what would I be giving people? But throughout the pandemic and just like figuring out different ways to sort of make money, but also kind of finding this little like finding my like niche a little bit, like and figuring out what people, that there's people out there who do want to support me and who want to pay a monthly fee to support me, which is still crazy to me. And I think at the beginning, when I first started streaming on Twitch and being able to charge subscriptions, I would get in my head about that a lot, because I was like, why would anyone want, like, major imposter syndrome, why would anyone want to pay me a monthly fee just to be me? I didn't get it. And I put all kinds of crazy pressure on myself, like, oh my God, I have to stream like this many times a week, and I like have to do this and this for these people. And like, it's great to like feel a sense of responsibility to your community, because I think that is really important. Like, you do have a responsibility to your community, but it's not like they're sitting there with like a notepad, like checking off the number of hours to make sure that they're like getting their $7 worth. You know what I mean? Like, that's not the case at all. So, yeah, I've been streaming on Twitch. Like, I've been, that platform allows you to monetize your channel through subscriptions and tips and ad revenue. Ad revenue is very, very small. But yeah, it's been going really good. At first I really didn't understand the whole world, how what was happening on stream carried over to when I was offline. And that's sort of like really at its base level, that's kind of why I first started a Discord, is like I needed a place to like keep in touch with people who would come and watch my streams when I wasn't streaming. And I made one purely just to like get their opinion on things. Like, if I was going to do like a theme to stream or like whatever, I would just go in Discord and chat with them about it. And then over time, it's gotten more and more involved in that. Now I have like certain sections that are just for my subscribers. I can do like, sometimes I do giveaways in there. Sometimes we just chat about stuff. I have things like, I have a channel that's all about like DJ discussion stuff, like that people can ask me questions. I have like one channel that's just strictly for track IDs and stuff like that. So, and that stuff's all like closed, and that's only open for my subscribers. And then I can do stuff for them too. Like, I create like custom playlists that are just for my subscribers, and I don't publish them anywhere else. And I just only put them in that Discord channel. And that kind of ensures that they're getting something that no one else is. And just little things like that. So yeah, it's been honestly really humbling to have this group of people who are willing to support me that way. But it's also been like really inspiring as well, just to know that exists, because coming especially from like the world of like, I'm like a working DJ. Well, pre-pandemic, I was like a working local DJ who I was playing like every weekend, 3-4 times a week. And I felt like I was always begging people to support me. Like, please come to my gig tonight, like, please pay cover, or if not, I'll put you on the guest list and you can drink like my free drink tickets. You know what I mean? Like it's just always this constant like bargain with people for support, which is fine. Like I understand that is part of what we do too. I do think that's gonna have to be different like after the pandemic. I think that the days of like unlimited guest list and like unlimited drink tickets are gone. But
for sure.
Yeah. So Pat, go ahead.
No, I mean, I think you summed it up really well. I mean, we haven't, talked about how I know that by the time I checked out your Discord, because I'd been watching the streams. We have mutual friends, and over the past year and with streaming and things, we've got to know each other a little bit better. But it was really cool to see how organized the Discord is. Like I have a smaller one, but for me, yeah, I started it to support my streams, which I'm like a lot less regular with these days for different reasons. But I think that all of this stuff, especially in this, over the past 18 months, has kind of dovetailed together, and artists are going and entertainers going, well, how can I keep my audience engaged? How can I continue to grow and push myself and try new things? And it's not just, smaller artists. Obviously, the Twitch community was very gamer centric before and still is, but we saw a flood of, let's say, DJs going, Sophie Tucker played every day for like 200 days in a row. I don't know when they stopped, but it was just the time of commitment, the type of commitment that was an output that was going out there. And you have people like Disclosure and Oliver who are, giving away all their secrets, opening up sessions to some of the biggest hits and just taking people through them, and giving away, the secret sauce to production, and then combining them with sets or whatever, and then linking them back to the Discord and going, okay, well, subs get this. And we have this new, essentially, like you mentioned, it's sort of like Patreon. Like Patreon is in the same type of approach, if a little simpler, but not that there's anything wrong with Patreon either. Like any way you can find a way to give your fans value and allow them to demonstrate their engagement and their fandom, really, even though some people hate using the word fans. I mean, whatever, it's like patronage, the concept of patronage plus. You don't like either, right? It doesn't matter. Okay, you're supporters.
Yeah, supporters.
You're supporters. And I think that, yeah, it's a crazy time for it. Like you're saying earlier, Jam, that maybe before you wouldn't have suggested to an artist that they need to be everywhere. And I know what you mean. Like, I mean, you can be, if you're not going to be everywhere, then you better be like nowhere, which is like Daft Punk, and just that's it. But are you going to bet on being that when you're just starting out, like these days? And you also can't really do that midway through your career. You can't go from like being on Instagram to, you can't, unless you're like Jai Paul, and just sort of disappear. But he was always pretty elusive, so that fits. I think it's pretty difficult to bet on that, and if you have the vision and execution, you can do that. But that's the same goes for anything. And so I think for me, when I first started, I just looked, and my Discord, I opened my Discord like last April, and I was like, wow, didn't know what I was doing, still don't know what I'm doing, but it's cool to see the community build and interact with each other, and do little like beat battles or collabs together. And I'm like, oh wow, like that's great. The community is sort of driving itself in a way. And I did a production, like a week-long production course a few months ago, and a bunch of them signed up for that. And I was like, wow, that's really nice, because it's it's outside of the thing and outside of what we normally do, but they can support in different ways. And while I'm still figuring out how to get maybe more of my supporters, say like the people on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, through the Discord, I think these types of approaches are going to become, or if not are already integral to an artist's success, connecting with their base.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you even see other platforms and stuff like bringing some of these kind of elements into what they're doing now. Like Twitter is going to have a paywall situation where people can pay or charge subscriptions for people.
Wow.
Like there'll be I don't exactly know how the experience is going to look yet, but from what I gathered reading the press stuff is that if I went to Pat's Twitter, I could see his public tweets, and then there would be certain tweets that would be like behind a paywall that I would have to pay to see. So
It's activated by blood alcohol content.
Yeah.
And then it goes to private after that.
Like there's that, and that's Twitter, you know, like it's a platform that's been around forever, and they're also pivoting to include that. And then even Clubhouse, which is like a more discussion based audio app, they're integrating tipping right into the app. So I think there is this sort of like move towards compensating creators and allowing people to directly support creators in many different ways. Yeah, Discord is just super interesting. Like if there's people listening to this who aren't on there, who haven't joined a few servers, like I would definitely just like join and like poke around and like get familiar with it. The functionality on it is insane. Like, you know, if you are someone who, you know, like you, for instance, Sean, if you have a lot of people who you've been able to capture their emails through SoundCloud or whatever it is, you can create like essentially like paywalled channels for your email subscribers, because the API is like really flexible. I mean, they wouldn't have to pay, but they've already signed up for your email newsletter is what I'm saying. So yeah, there's just like a bunch of different ways that you can sort of like create these like exclusive content experiences. And there's something to that. There's a reason why OnlyFans is like the business that it is. You know what I mean? This is the OnlyFans model. It's what it is. It's just bringing it to other platforms and creating different kinds of content than what's on OnlyFans.
Yeah.
But we love OnlyFans.
You know, we talked a little bit about engagement, and that's where I think Twitch has been a game changer in the pandemic, just in terms of, you know, you're playing some tunes, you see someone in the chat, you give them a shout out, instantly they have that connection to you. Whereas, you know, in the club, maybe they might get a chance to talk to you after a set. But I feel like that engagement factor for Twitch, and then you add the Discord in, and it really just creates this whole new beast of being able to engage your fans on a whole nother level.
So much, you know, and like the most interesting thing about Twitch for me is that your biggest supporters will show you who they are. They will like self-identify right away by showing up to every stream, by getting involved in the chat, by gifting. And it's like there's no like mystery anymore. Like, you know, who like if I'm playing a show at a club a year and a half ago, it's hard to tell like who out here is like really down for me, who's here just because they got in for free or that their bartender's the roommate, you know what I mean? But like with something like Twitch, like your super supporters are like, yeah, they're saying it loud and proud. So you can really like hone in on like those people and make it a special experience for them, but like figure out how to find more of those people, really.
Who are the real, you know, who are your real supporters? It's one of the most common questions. Or who and where are they? And I think you know, Twitch has been amazing for, as Sean said, like discovering, you know, new artists to follow and new DJs and new Discords and things like that. And I think part of that also relates to like when I first started Discord, I was like, oh, like I don't know, like it'll be weird if there's just a few people in there at first, and I was too worried about like, you know, like literally like the optics of like starting one without realizing that like, you know, if you have 10 like real supporters or fans, whatever, off the bat that are in there, like you're gonna have like a party. Like it's great, and they're gonna bring their friends. And I think, you know, Discord has been around for a long enough time for a lot of communities, and I was just totally new to it. But people want to also get in on like the ground floor, and you know, in your first subs, you know, probably helping out and being mods now and have different types of levels. And that's sort of the link to, that's sort of like linking back to the crypto conversation, which I think is it's hard to get away from these days, because I'll preface that by saying my friend RAC has been like kind of leading at like the forefront of this for a while now, but he's been talking about Ethereum for like years, and I was like, I don't know what he's talking about, like this is weird. But last year, I think, or even before that, he issued a token for a cassette, and I was like, oh, this is interesting, like what's going on? Because I had also dropped a cassette with an EP with a vinyl, so I think this is 2 years ago, now. And I saw him say that the value of the token for the cassette, called like tape, had gone up to whatever, some crazy number, like $800, $900. And I was like, wow, like what's happening here? And then it like evened out. And that was sort of when I started paying attention to the stuff that he was doing. Basically, it was for anyone that bought the album, you know, you were issued this like tape token, and you could sell it or trade it. And then if you wanted to redeem it, you would burn it or destroy it. And then you would earn the rights to be mailed the cassette version of the album. And looking back at that now, I mean, this is kind of, you know, a year or over a year later, we're talking about like NFTs and what all this stuff is. But it's really interesting because then what that really did was allow fans to determine the value of what, you know, this one thing was, and this collectible, really kind of game-changing stuff in a time when, like we were just talking about, we're like, I don't know if I can spare like 2 follows and a comment for like this for a track, and it's hard. It's nice to see music and art being valued again, you know, after it's been devalued for the last 2 decades over and over again. So yeah, I think that all of this links together, and like in terms of access, I don't know if we want to talk about NFTs, but I think that's the interesting side of technology as well, beyond Discord. And I think going back to like your audiences and things like that, your supporters are going to want like more and more access, really, like to you. They want to know, you know, about Aki, and they want to know about, you know, whatever you're making, like, you know, this weekend, etc.
Yeah, I think NFTs are something we can definitely chat about, because it does feel kind of like the wild, wild west right now, and people are really, it's the hot topic and everyone's getting involved. Where would you kind of see NFTs going within the music industry, within streaming platforms? Like, how do you see that playing out in the next couple of months and even years?
So, quick preface on that. I really started paying attention to what RSU was doing when he sold his first NFT, I think less than a year ago, or about a year ago now. It went for 70K. And I was like, oh, no more shows, huh? Maybe I'll like look into this NFT stuff. You know, so I sort of dove in and started learning about, you know, I think now it's almost been memed to the point where people are like, oh, you can buy a GIF or a music video or whatever, and that's fine. The interesting part is the access and the utility of it. And so when it becomes, I think Disclosure they weren't the first, but they sold one of their first ones, like the first iteration of the face logo, that went for 140K. And I believe that the holder of the NFT gets access to all of their shows around the world for as long as they have an NFT. Now let's be real, for 140K, like that's solid, but you're also probably you're getting more than that, because they know who you are. They, you know, it was a group of guys that pooled their money together. They're going to know who they are. And, you know, now you have a patron artist relationship, which is old. I mean, back in the classical days, you had like, you know, Mozart, Beethoven, they would go and they would be like, they would have their patrons. It was like in the courts, you know, your duke or the king would be like, hey, here's some shekels or whatever, like write me a symphony. And they'd be like, cool, like thanks, I can eat, like let's go do it. And I think that so that's one side of it, like access. Another side is use. I think with games and things like that, we're going to see people be able to take these NFTs, whatever that is, like, and, you know, have them on their phone and be able to use them to access events in real life, and as well in the digital world, like in your I'm not a gamer, but you have Decentraland and Sandbox, which they're essentially, to me, they're just like my big nicer versions of Minecraft, but dealing with a lot more, I guess, open world. And when you see the corporations like Tesla, Amazon, or whoever are starting to stake out real plots of land, I think Decentraland today, so they've been doing some of these pop-up DJ shows. I don't know if you guys have seen them like on Twitch. And I think Porter Robinson, RIC, Boys Noise, Dylan Francis have performed at some of them with their avatars, which is really cool. And I think Decentraland just announced a partnership with Amnesia Ibiza today. So it's like, okay, I can't go to Ibiza until whenever I can go. But hey, like maybe I can go check out their DJs like in Decentraland. And maybe if I have, one of the first Amnesia NFTs, like now I'll have access to the VIP in Decentraland. But then maybe that'll also cross over, back to the real deal. And maybe I'll get that Dylan Francis NFT and he'll send me, something like X. So I think the use case is like ever consistently expanding for this stuff.
Yeah. And I think that's the key thing that people who want to write it off are sort of like missing, is that like right now it's new still, like it's still kind of, it is the Wild West. Like people are figuring it out, people are trying things, but everything has to start somewhere. And like, it's like the technology behind it that is really interesting to me. Like I think right now it is a little bit like trendy and like, like you see people doing NFTs for millions of dollars and it's like become this like big buzz thing. But like where it has potential to go for me is like why I'm watching it. Like I'm not going to buy an NFT right now. I'm not going to put one out right now, but like I definitely want to know that notion of like ownership and also being compensated for your work. To me is super interesting. Like as someone who, I spent years like creating content on behalf of other bigger platforms, and I would just get paid a flat rate, let's say, for like a piece that I wrote for a huge music publication, that some of them went viral and got them like millions of page views. But like I literally just made the same amount as, I got paid my flat rate and that was it. What if there was a way for me to get compensated every time it was viewed? Like I would like that.
Do you know about the Right Race? Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
It's essentially like a voting. It's I guess it's an Ethereum based platform, and it's like a voting. It's a contest that goes every week, and only like the winners get to be published that week, and the winners are granted right with a dollar sign, like right tokens, and so it's a writing competition based in crypto, and it's kind of the same thing, and you're paid out in these tokens. And there was one model that I was lucky enough to like be a fly on the wall for, and someone said, I'm going to do this. Here's my pitch for my essay, a long form piece. I don't remember what it was about specifically right now, but he said, once the bid is met, then we will publish the piece, and you are all fractional owners of said piece. And I'm like, as a creator, I'm like, wow, that's awesome. If the bid of whatever, I think it was fairly high. It was like, I mean, it wasn't crazy. It was like a couple ETH or something like that, which is still no. As a writer, that's like not chump change, right? It's like 5K US right now. And so I think we're going to see, back to the thing of ownership. Sorry to totally like run with this, Jayem, but I think you'll like this also. Jacques Green, CanCon, shout out, sold, I think he was one of the first people to sell in an NFT song, and I don't remember if it was a music video component. I think it was just a song he uploaded to Zora, and the owner, the winning bid of that piece, NFT, won the full publishing rights on the song. We're going to see a shift towards masters as well, and that's interesting. Like we can now crowdfund and crowdsource, sell off fractional pieces as an artist. If I'm like, well, I need $100,000 to produce my next record. I never do, but maybe I will someday, right? Like hire whatever Kanye for like a verse, and I can sell off pieces of pub and masters, and that could be in an NFT format. And right now it's like at the social promise level, but the technology is there. And I was in another group conversation with a friend of a friend, and he was talking about how he had been working on this stuff at Microsoft, and they through the Xbox, I guess, platform, were working on blockchain essay related to royalties and how they managed to get down, like for the music that they were using for licensing in games, and they managed to get processing down from 45 days to hours. So as someone that's used to getting paid 6 to 9 months trailing on my own music, that sounds pretty appealing.
Yeah.
I feel like with NFTs, you sound like you're very well versed in it, Pat. And we could talk about it for probably the rest of the conversation.
Let's not.
Yeah, but there is another platform that I think we should mention, and that is TikTok. Have you guys utilized TikTok? What are your thoughts on it, engagement-wise with fans? Is that something that you might take up if you're not using it right now? What are your thoughts on TikTok?
Yeah, so I use it. Like, I'm not a creator on TikTok. I haven't ever made a TikTok myself. But I definitely like enjoy the platform. To me, TikTok right now is like, it reminds me of social media in like 2011. Like, it's kind of like crazy and people are just like having fun and like being weird with it. And I also like that it's like bringing out people's creative sides a lot more. And another really nice thing about TikTok is, again, similarly to what we were talking about before with SoundCloud, like the organic reach that you can get on TikTok is like absolutely insane. Like, I don't know how long that's going to last. So now is like really the time to like get on there and take advantage of this time when it is like that. Because yeah, you can go viral very quickly. And I think that the interesting thing about TikTok too is that it's, it's not somewhere that you need to have original ideas all the time either. Like, the whole platform is kind of based on like copying and these like trends and dance crazes, and like in a way it's kind of endearing because there's not so much pressure to like, oh my god, I need something new to do today. It's like you could literally just open TikTok and be like, what's trending today? I'm gonna try this thing, and I think there's just this whole move altogether, like across the board, of like social media and social content being a lot more like fun and less like perfectly curated and a little bit like rough around the edges. And I love that about TikTok. And I think if you're an artist making music, like, there's really no way you shouldn't be on it. And it's hard. And I know that some people are like, I open it and I feel like I'm like 1,000 years old. But there's a way for everyone to figure out their way on TikTok. Like, some of the biggest accounts, like Tabitha Brown, I don't know if you guys know who she is. She's like literally a mom, and she she's one of the most like followed and loved accounts on there for her like little cooking videos. And like, she could have easily just said like, oh, I'm too old for this shit, but she didn't, and now she's killing it. So I think it's just about like finding a way that works for you, that feels authentic to you. But 100% every artist should be on there. And like, especially in Canada, like, they just opened an office here in Toronto. They like staffed up really heavily here in Canada. So now is a good time to sort of like get on there as a Canadian artist, for sure. Canadian creator of any kind, especially artist though.
Definitely. If you're an artist, if you're a new artist, especially, but I think if you're an artist, you need to be on there. I've only done a couple, and I actually feel like I wrote it off for a bit too long, because I didn't get that it was more than just the viral dances or whatever. And again, going on there and being like, I feel like I shouldn't even be like viewing this platform sometimes. But I think I started to pay attention when, like you said, I don't know, is Tabitha Brown the like Southern lady?
Yeah, exactly.
That with like the super soothing, yeah. There's all sorts of verticals on there. There's FinTalk, which is just like memes and financial advice, like meme coins and financial advice. There's some really interesting ones. There's like the social justice ones, which love to bait and switch. It's like makeup tutorial, but it's like, no, while I'm like doing this makeup tutorial, I'm going to tell you about a genocide that's happening right now, and it's been described to me as the greatest media platform of our time, and I'm starting to understand what that statement means. I need to like go all the way in, but the tools that are in there, you have a film studio at your fingertips. And like you said, JM, is you don't even have to start with something original. You can go, and they encourage like the duet mode. It's one of the most interesting things to me, where they're encouraging. John Mayer has been like smashing it on there. He just does, sometimes he'll just play guitar for 3 minutes. He'll do a whole song, and then you'll add the text of like verse, chorus, and he'll just, he won't be singing or anything. And encourage. So I was looking at this John Mayer to whatever, it's probably only 60 seconds, but I think that's the limit. 60-second loop, and going, oh, like, could I play? I tried a couple things and didn't pan out. But then later on that day, I saw a singer who I follow on Instagram post her duet of it. And I was like, oh, you did it. Like, you crushed it. And this is so cool. And I think that, yeah, it's, you need to be there because, like you said, you can go, the ceiling is unlimited. Blue to Tiger is probably one of the poster kids for TikTok. She's a bassist. She crushes it. I think she first went viral last year, over a year ago, with a cover or like a remix of Doja Cat or something like that, or Cardi, somewhere in that lane. And then she's just she just took it on. And I started paying more attention when she did this killer version of Janet Jackson Control, and I was like, this is incredible. But she's now over like at 1 million like plus, and like labels and managers have been falling all over themselves to try and sign her. And for sure she's like gonna just smash her first tour, because early adopter and like figured it out. And I don't think you have to be conventionally one way or another. But I think regardless, if you're creating anything, not just like in music, there's a great way to tell your story and show your side on TikTok. Also, it doesn't have the pressure of Instagram, which is what I love, like where everything has to look like great. And I think we got away from that a little bit with the fatigue over the last couple of years. But people are totally fine with uploading things with 50, 100 views. And then, some things will have like tens of thousands. Like, all right, cool. You just keep it going. Just tell your story.
Yeah. And like, if you're a creator or an artist who's ever uploaded something to Instagram, and, I come from a marketing background, so like, I like to check the numbers and I like to like watch all that stuff. And it's really like frustrating when you upload something that you've put a lot of work into creating, and then you're like, okay, only like 15% of the people who follow me are seeing this. Like, I put all this work into like building my audience on here, and like, it's not even, this platform is not even showing my content to the people who chose to follow me. So if you've ever been frustrated by that, TikTok is like the complete other end of the spectrum. Not only will it show your content to people who've chosen to follow you, it shows it to everybody else too. And the algorithm on there, man, I know why they guard it like it's Fort Knox, because it is insane. Like, I go on there sometimes and I'll like, find myself like watching, like if I watch a video for like even like 10 seconds instead of just flipping right past it, there'll be like tons more of that kind of video in my feed all of a sudden randomly, So that's really great for artists, because it's like, if someone is even a little bit interested in someone like you, they're going to get shown your stuff. So that's super interesting.
That's a good point.
You mentioned the algorithm with Instagram. There's another platform we haven't mentioned yet, and that is Facebook. How are you guys using Facebook at this time? Because obviously, since we first joined Facebook, especially like promoting events, that's what primarily I would use it for. What do you think of Facebook right now? Do you still use it? Or is it just kind of like a nice to have? Do you still find value in using it?
I personally don't even use it for like my personal life. Like, I don't even go on there anymore. I have it, and the only reason I haven't like deactivated my personal page is because my personal page is like linked to my like artist page, which is like linked to my Instagram. So I'm just like, I don't know how to like unlink all this. So I'm just going to abandon it. But basically, like, I don't really, I also used to always make events on Facebook, because I was like, this is like, seems like the one thing that, I would do it myself too. If I had a night off and I wanted to like know what was going on, there's no other real place that like houses that information. So I would often go and like click on the events tab and just like see what was going on. I don't know what people's, if people are still going to do that post pandemic, I have no idea. But I think that unfortunately, like, because Facebook is Instagram, like, you kind of have to have one. And another thing that Facebook does have that is really good though is like the advertising options. And I've had like a lot of success with like promoting stuff on my end through Facebook and Instagram, you know, like promoting stuff as like promoted stories, especially for music releases. Those can be like really handy. If you're an artist that has like, you know, less than 10,000 followers and you don't have the swipe up option, you can do like a promoted story that will link off to like your smart URL or whatever. And you can stretch a small budget like very far. If you don't know what you're doing, like you probably should only use small budget stuff. But yeah, it's still the best bang for your buck, like for digital advertising, social advertising. And you know, Facebook has like so many great like targeting options. The demographic targets are really strong. You can upload your email database into Facebook and use like custom audiences. So you can target people who are only in your email database with ads. You can use them to create what's called like a lookalike audience, which basically targets people who are like the people who are in your custom audience, which is really handy. Because it's basically like a no-brainer. Like if people have already signed up for your newsletter, they're probably into the stuff you're doing, you know. So there's a lot of good things about Facebook beyond just like posting status updates. And I think that's really what it's become kind of good for, is all those things I just named.
You almost convinced me to start using Facebook again. that was impressive. No, that
my
was
money, Mark Zuckerberg. Give me my money.
Yeah, no, I use it. I've been bad. I like even the simple stuff like the content posts or you know, release or something that I would all just cascade over from Instagram, which is the same thing now these days, or Twitter. Sometimes I just forget to post them to Facebook because I so many years of like, again, the worst algorithm in the world to have like, you know, I think I'm around like 17K or something like that, been there around there for in my page, and then just getting years of like getting 5 likes or something on something just destroyed my morale. I was like, this is ridiculous. And then people were sharing memes. They were just uploading random memes on there to get their algorithms up. Like DJs were short, like unrelated memes. Like, all right, that's fine. Game system. I use it for. There's a couple of good sort of music communities groups that are still active, I think, on there. And so I think that aspect like of like, you know, private groups or maybe they're public groups that can still be a solid discussion format. I'm a member of a secret cooking group full of like Canadian people. So it's like, oh, here's a recipe in French and I have to like decipher that. So I should probably not totally discount it, but like it definitely feels super boomery, and depending on who your audience is, like maybe if you ignore, you know, Facebook, then you're going to lose a lot, you know, not reach a lot of your supporters. It's kind of knowing what are you going to focus on, and I'm probably the wrong person to ask because like I kind of think I know what I should do, but I'm always like a little slow to do it, and I kind of like before I was like Instagram or these live videos or even TikTok. But if you were to spend all your time on one platform right now as an artist, I would say you could do a lot worse than TikTok, and Facebook would be probably near the bottom of that list. Yes. If you had to pick one.
It's probably the worst for your mental health if you start scrolling through comments and threads.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that I did want to mention, I don't know if you guys rock with this, but Audio Mac is like an interesting platform right now. It's like kind of works like a SoundCloud in that like independent artists can upload their music to it. So it doesn't like pull from any DSPs. It's all like independently owned and distributed music. But it's really great for discovery. I've had a lot of artist friends and artist manager friends who are saying that they're getting like a lot of traction through Audio Mac on the discovery tip. And I think for a long time, people didn't really take the platform seriously. like they're kind of like, what is this? Is this just for like mixtapes? Like, I don't really get it. But you know, they've done some like really interesting business deals lately, like, and their stream data actually go like it counts towards the Billboard now, and they're like making a lot of interesting moves in that way. So for artists, I would really recommend looking into AudioMac.
Interesting. I've seen it a couple times, but that sounds like they've made some moves.
They've
On the
definitely.
curation. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Joe.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, they've made some moves, and they're going like for a very specific like sector of the market, you know, like because it's like geared towards like independent artists who have the ability to upload their music into it. A lot of the stuff that they do, even from a curation standpoint, and the editorial that they do is all like really centered around that, which I think is really nice because there's not like, it feels sometimes like in this day and age that there's not as much support for that like sort of like smaller or middle ground artist. So I really appreciate what they're doing, and they're doing also really great editorial content, which is like kind of a lost art these days. You know, their interviews and stuff are like really solid. So big fan here. Go ahead, Pat. Sorry.
Sweet. No, well, I think it sounds like you're talking a bit about curation, which is something I haven't thought a ton about, but definitely hear the need for in this time. I mean, I don't know how many people that consider themselves like big music fans will just rely on an algorithmic playlist. I don't do it for only just passive listening typically, and so that was what surprised me actually on TikTok that I didn't know was happening. Is I saw my music pop up on a DSP on like a sizable playlist on Spotify, and I was like, what is this playlist? And I looked back and it was a TikTok account, and I wish I could remember right now. I send it out after the call, but this guy's been he basically runs his TikTok account like a music blog, except everything is hyper concentrated. And so he's got a series called like songs to groove to, and like every week he'll do maybe 2 of those, and he'll be like dancing, into the like sort of seamless mini mixes, and he'll just be dancing along. And then there'll be another one like songs to drive to, and he'll be in the car. And it's as simple as it sounds. There's a lot of music that he's churning through, and his numbers are really big, are like, on TikTok are really big. And I have not seen this kind of curation. I'm like, wow, this is great. I recognize friends and other artists that he's featuring, and then there's a lot of music that I haven't heard before, and I'm like, and he covers like he casts a wide net. It's not just house music or dance music. He goes through rap albums and things like that. He's clearly just a big fan, and so if this is one of the evolutions for curators, I'm like, kind of like, sign me up. And of course I started following him. That's one aspect I think is really interesting. I totally sound like a paid shill, but I'm not. Going back to the curator thing and how to compensate new music creators. Right now, I believe that Audius is sending like tokens, or there's like prize. I think the prize is like Audius tokens. They're like awarding for the top 5 trending tracks and top 5 curated playlists each week. So that's pretty cool. Again, if you're like, let's say this guy or Jayem, you want to start uploading your cuts, not even uploading your cuts, compiling your favorite cuts that you played on Twitch that week, finding them on Audius, or if they're not there, reaching out to those artists, but put your shit up, like, let's make these playlists and let's get this popping. And then, you're getting rewarded as a curator. I just think that these kind of modes of thinking are going to provide more transparency than before, where it's like, if you didn't know, and I've heard you talk about this before a little bit, like, how do you get on these playlists on Spotify? Well, like, let's be serious. Like, when there's only 3 people working on electronic music at Spotify, like, how transparent do you think that's going to be? It's going to be very similar to the old school radio model, which you like it, perhaps not the most egalitarian approach.
You can say that again.
So we're almost out of time here. Jayem, I have a question for you. Post-pandemic, whenever that is, Canada seems to be dropping the ball a little bit here, but are you going to continue to stream as much on Twitch before? Because you're probably going to go back to doing regular gigs. Are you going to keep up with the streaming, or how do you approach that?
I'm definitely going to stream. You know, I've already scaled it back a little bit just because I've been kind of trying to work on some other things, but I'm definitely going to keep streaming at least a couple times a week. I hope to, anyways. For me, there's just like really, it's a no-brainer. Like I said, I've been able to find these people who want to support me and who've been there for me like in the worst of times. So I feel like I have a really like dope special relationship with like my community, and I want that to keep going. And I think also just it's sort of given me like this new lease on like DJing post club DJ life, you know. Like I always knew that I wasn't going to want to play in clubs forever, like, and this is nothing against people that do have club careers well into their like 40s and even 50s. Like some people can really do it. I just always knew that that wasn't going to be me, you know, and I want to have a family one day and all those things, but I never want to give up DJing. I love it. And I think this is a way that I could really see myself doing it forever. You know, it's at home. I can like choose the times I want. I can like finish early. All those things like really lend itself well to sort of like transitioning out of playing in the club. So I'll definitely keep, you know, streaming. Another thing that I love about Twitch is that like it kind of allows me to like express myself and showcase my different interests, because your channel can be whatever you want it to be. Like you know, mine, when I first started streaming, I was really like focusing more on like music and actual like DJing, and now it's like kind of evolved. Like the music is almost like secondary, honestly, to like the discussion part of it and just like the fun that my community has with each other. And so I've done so many different things on my channel. You know, I've hosted workshops. I know Pat's checked some of those out. I've hosted like interviews where I've like interviewed artists, and that's really fun. And yeah, so I want to continue doing it. It's, for me, it's like it's so much more than just like a DJ stream. It's really like my own little media platform that I can like kind of use how I want. So yeah, I love it. And I don't think I'll ever use it to stream from like gigs per se, just because like the discussion part from my channel is so big that I would feel weird like just setting a camera up like in the corner of the DJ booth and like not engaging with it. But I've seen some people do that and it's cool, you know. So I think there's just so many different ways you can kind of incorporate it to post COVID life.
Sweet, thank you. And Pat, sounds like you have some new music coming out. Can you give us some details on what's getting released soon?
Sure, yeah. I've got a remix for Alberta Connection, Small Town DJs with Bootsy Collins coming out on Fool's Gold this Friday, so that's pretty exciting. Got another remix and then a single coming out with this Australian label Club Sweat next month. And I just finished a mixtape featuring only Asian producers for 88 Rising, and that'll air also next month on Sirius XM for AAPI month. So yeah, a lot of new music coming out.
It's great to hear. Well, I just want to thank you guys for joining us today and sharing your insights on this wild industry we're a part of. And I wish you guys the best, and hopefully we'll get to meet one day at a live gig and hang out and share some tunes.
Yeah, I would love that.
Likewise.
All right.
Thanks for having us.
Take care.
Bye.
Later.